Broadcasting from Swanson Studios, you're watching Mustang News.
Hello and welcome to Mustang News TV. I'm Izzy Romero, and joining me today is San Luis Obispo City Council candidate Jan Marx. Marx has been a member of the San Luis Obispo City Council for a total of 16 years, starting in 1998, and she was mayor of San Luis Obispo for 6 years, from 2010 to 2016. Thank you so much, Jan, for taking the time to sit down with Mustang News.
Well, thank you for having me.
Awesome. So to begin the interview, I wanted to ask what motivated you to run for re-election?
Well, basically, a lot of people who support me have asked me to do it. So that's, you know, when you have that kind of enthusiasm, it's hard to say no. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, there are a lot of very important policies and, projects that I really want to make sure are actually completed to serve the people who live in the city of San Luis Obispo.
Awesome answer.
Yeah.
My next question is, what have you been doing to prepare yourself for this year's elections?
Oh, gosh, what have I been doing? Well, it's like running a business. Mm-hmm. Running a campaign is very much like running a business. So you have the regulations, then you have the financial part, you have to raise money.
Right.
In terms of preparation, because I've just served 4 years on the city council, I'm running for re-election. I'm pretty conversant with the city policies and the, the priorities that I want to forward and that residents really want. One of them is, for instance, continuing to protect and maintain our open space. I spearheaded, before I was ever on city council, I spearheaded the whole campaign to get Bishop's Peak to be open to the public. It was private before, and that was kind of the kickoff, and since then I've been working to complete the Greenbelt, for instance, but it's not completed. We're about 70%. So so the preparation, basically, it's a matter of, just time management. When you're running for office, everybody thinks they can just say, show up here, and you do, so, Anyway, I enjoy campaigning because it's a chance to communicate with a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely, and a lot of time management, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Knowing that San Luis Obispo has a big population of college-age voters because of Cal Poly, what are your plans to secure the college vote?
Well, basically, I have a lot of very positive feelings toward the students. I have to say we lived on Albert Drive for over 30 years, and it's now completely students, but when we first moved here it was kind of half and half and like that. And I taught as a lecturer in construction management because my background is in the law. I had my own law practice for many years and was the dean of the local law school pretty recently. But my husband taught here for 30 years. He's retired now. And I have a grandson who's a senior at Cal Poly right now, so I have to say that I have a great deal of really positive feelings toward the students. And I'm very concerned about the fact that rents are so high and that the quality of the housing that they have off campus is often really substandard. And I want to, among other things, work to do what the city can. First of all, discover the tools that are available to us, but to do a stronger effort toward tenant protection. I feel that's very important. So the students aren't the only tenants. I mean, 60% of the population of the city is renters, approx. And probably 50% of the population of the city is student age. So there's Cuesta too. It's not just Cal Poly. Right. The student age. So we're not like your average normal generic city. We're like a very youthful city. And I appreciate that. I have to say also that I've worked hard to try to improve relationships between the students and the neighbors out in the neighborhoods where there is sometimes differing lifestyles, and so people have to really talk with each other and communicate and figure out how to be good neighbors, both the permanent residents and the students, So, I mean, for students, it's like they might be 2 years, they might be 3 years in the neighborhoods. But for people who are permanent residents, this is like their home, and they're, so there's a conflict there.
Yeah.
However, my husband and I always had good relations with the students all around us. We always told them if we were going to have parties, and we asked that they also told us if they were going to have parties. And sometimes we got invited. But basically, the noise factor is always a problem. If people have kids, or if people, have to get up early, people have to work. It's a whole different lifestyle, but it's something that the city has worked on, and I think we will continue to do that. It takes goodwill on all sides. So.
Absolutely. You kind of touched it a little bit in the past question, but the next question is, what are some issues that San Luis Obispo is currently facing that you want to address once elected?
Right. Well, there are a lot of issues that we're facing right now. Right now, actually, the city's in pretty good shape. But when I ran for election in 2020, it was in the middle of COVID. And we didn't know what that was going to mean for the health and well-being of our residents. We didn't know, people were dying. We didn't know how bad it was or even what it was. And the reason I ran for city council at that time is that there were no other really qualified people who were running for city council. And since I had such a strong background, expertise, and experience, I decided to offer my services to the voters, and if they wanted me, they could have me. So they did, So the issues now, so there's a little bit of complacency happening around issues involving climate change. And I did spearhead the first climate action plan that the city had in 2010. And so along with climate change comes, we're doing everything we can as a city. We're really, I think, a leader in terms of a small city, but we will have droughts. We will have floods. California has earthquakes. And who knows what else could be happening. But so one of my big priorities is to strengthen the safety net that we have for the residents, and make sure about water security. That's very important. The other issue, which might come up in another question, is in terms of the homeless population. They're the most vulnerable when it's 100 degrees outside in October, like it has been. If they don't have any place to go, if they don't have any place to shelter themselves, what do? And it's a city problem. It's not something that the city created, and we're not funded. The funding comes from the state and the county. The city is not funded to deal with the homeless. Nonetheless, when they're in our city limits, there are residents, and so we need to take care of them as best we can. If they want help, then if they don't want help, then that's where you get into the problems. And people who are basically kind of antisocial one way or another, and they're the ones who really sometimes verge into criminal behavior. So they're the ones you really have to be kind of strong with. But the average homeless person who's just maybe lost a job or had some kind of illness, can't pay these very high rents, all of a sudden they're out. I think about half of the people who are homeless in our county are actually from our county. They're not necessarily coming here. So that's a big issue. And there's always questions of just keeping the city solvent. So I have a background in budget, which I think is really important. The city's very much like a business, and but we're not a for-profit business. We're not a nonprofit. We're a governmental entity, which means we've got a lot of different kinds of powers we can work together with businesses. But I'm a strong believer in government not over-realizing revenue, and by that I mean not taking in more money than we need to actually get the job done. So when the parking rates, when we had an opportunity to lower the parking rates, I was definitely voting yes, let's lower those rates. When the garbage collection management rate for the Integrated Waste Management Authority came up, I'm the president there, that's a countywide organization, I voted yes, let's lower the rates. A few years ago, we had an opportunity to actually lower the water and sewer rate, so I voted yes on that. So anything that we can do to make living here more affordable that the government can do, and the government doesn't have a, how do I say, we don't have a magic wand and we don't have power over the market forces, and I don't believe we should. But within the capacity that we have, I want to always try to look at the health and safety and well-being of our city residents, no matter how old they are or how young they are, you know, no matter who they are, no matter what ethnicity or background. So.
Absolutely. So I know you've definitely touched on topics that a lot of people in the Cal Poly community care about a lot. And we're nearing the end of our questions.
Okay.
So something I do want to ask is, why should the Cal Poly community specifically vote for you?
Well, I think that if they vote for me, they'll have a strong advocate on the city council, someone who will fight for their rights, and someone who will listen to them and, you know, take them seriously. You know, I'm not prejudiced against people on the basis of age, and I hope that they're not prejudiced against me on the basis of age. You know, it's really, I'm an advocate. I believe that young people, student-age people, have every right to fight for a future that they believe in and that will allow them to be their very best selves. And sometimes there is a conflict there between the status quo and what young people want, but I really feel government needs to listen to the voice of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to close us out, if you had a message for the San Luis Obispo community, what would it be?
Well, my message would be to vote for me. I actually brought a sign. You'll see these throughout the city. And so, yeah, I am a shameless campaigner. You live in the city, I'm gonna give you my
Thank you.
campaign card. And yeah, read the candidate statements. Make sure you're registered, that's important. There was a young fellow named Weston, and I met him. He's with the ASI, and he's in charge of getting students registered. He's giving away free donuts. It's pretty good. So yeah, vote and vote locally. I think that would be really good. And the other thing is to just make sure that you understand all of the issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. For more information regarding the candidate interview today, visit mustangnews.net. Thank you so much, Jan, for sitting here with us today and interviewing on Mustang News.